All right, I think we can get started. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us this afternoon for the 2026 Small Grant Info Session. I'm Alex Cooper with Lancaster Clean Water Partners. I'll get us kicked off here. Um, this is a joint info session for you to learn more about several water and environmental grant programs for Lancaster and our surrounding counties. The Clean Water Fund and the Susquehanna Riverlands and Schuylkill Highlands, their conservation landscaping mini grants are the main programs we'll be going over. We'll touch on a couple others, but we set up today's session really to make it easier for you as a project lead to learn about these opportunities in one place. It's a chance for you to connect directly with the grant coordinators for each program, and we'll give you all a chance to ask questions and also see how you can potentially pair together these kinds of programs. This is being recorded, and we will share it later on our website for you to refer back to, or please direct anyone who wasn't able to be here today. Please just check that you're muted. You'll have an opportunity to ask questions, but just so we can hear the presenters. So a little bit more about the overview of what we'll be going over. I'll start us off by going through the Lancaster Clean Water Partners Clean Water Fund before I pass it off to Jen to talk about the Susquehanna Riverlands and their conservation landscape mini grant program. Like I said, we'll see specific examples of how those two programs that have applications that mirror each other can be applied. And then finally, we'll touch on the Schuylkill Highlands Conservation Mini Grant Program. These overviews will give you kind of eligibility criteria, the application process, and some of the grant goals. We'll spend about 10 minutes on each of them, and we'll stop in between them all for questions and answers. So maybe in the meantime, as we're going through each of ours, you can jot any questions you have in the chat. And when we pause, you're welcome to be unmuted then and share your questions. And also, we'll get to those chat questions. All right, here's just a preview. We'll end on this slide so you can be sure to get all the contact information before we end. But this is who you'll hear from. Of course, myself and Rachel Hartman from the Lancaster County Community Foundation. The Small Clean Water Fund is held at the Community Foundation, so she'll touch on our eligibility criteria and some of their process. And then Jen and Estelle will talk about their respective conservation landscaping mini grant programs. Okay, so starting with the Lancaster Small Clean Water Fund. What is the Clean Water Fund? Like I said, that eligibility and application process. I'll also touch on some past examples of projects and give some of the timeline for projects that are awarded. But the fund itself it's our grant that serves as a catalyst for increased collaboration to achieve clean and clear water for Lancaster County by 2024. Provides a unique opportunity to work with landowners, leaders, and communities across the county on education, restoration, and conservation projects to improve water quality. So these are grants that can be from $1,000 to $20,000. We have about $85,000 available. Like I said, Rachel will go over eligibility, but it's really meant for nonprofits and municipalities. It's also our donor advised program. It's created and administered by Lancaster Clean Water Partners, but again, held at the Community Foundation. So we use their grant portal for the application process and managing the awards. Getting deeper into kind of what kind of projects, it supports innovative education, outreach, monitoring, or implementation projects that improve Lancaster's water quality. So this can be shovels in the ground, planting projects, or kind of community engagement or education programs. There's a lot of different forms that community education can take. So you see the project ideas. This is just kind of a brainstorming list. These are just some of the main categories that might get you thinking about where kinds of projects that they fall under. They do need to have a clean and a clear connection to water quality and help us reach our goals in Lancaster. So you'll see education, just look at these ideas, for example, education campaigns and curriculum development. That can be youth, that can be workforce development, introductions to conservation careers, field trips, experiential learning opportunities. Outreach can take a lot of different forms. That can be to landowners to advance potential larger implementation projects, or it could be outreach to reach new audiences. Art installations has been a pretty popular kind of application for the Small Clean Water Fund. It could be signage, anything that enhances the projects we already have in the ground. Can pay for supplies. Water monitoring equipment is a good example, so it can help teachers or our partner organizations do their measuring basically water quality. And again, I'll get into some of these examples and kind of walk through some notes as far as implementation projects and how the community education programs could go. Before I do, I will pause and turn it over. As I said, this is held at the Community Foundation, so Rachel Hartman can go through some of the basic eligibility for this grant.
Great. Thank you, Alex. My name's Rachel. I'm a program officer with the Community Foundation, and we're really excited to be able to partner with the Lancaster Clean Water Partners on this initiative. So this is just some general eligibility information that holds true for many of the foundation's funding opportunities. As Alex mentioned, the small clean water grants are geared towards 501c3 designated nonprofit organizations or municipalities that serve Lancaster County residents. You'll notice there are some different requirements for our nonprofit applicants, including being registered with PA's Bureau of Charitable Organizations, unless you are exempt. We also require that our nonprofit applicants complete their IRS tax return 990 annually. That's very important. For all applicants, municipality or nonprofit, we recommend that you have an annual audit or financial review completed by an independent CPA, and this should take place within the last 12 months. If you happen to participate in Extra Give, we're a little more lenient in that program that you can have an audit every other year. And again, any questions about these requirements or the grant portal, you're welcome to reach out to Alex or myself or both of us, and we can certainly help you with this. The application, we also require all of our applicants to provide their organization's non-discrimination policy. Again, there's more information about this on our website, lankfound.org/grants, and I can put that in the chat as well. It's also a policy of the Community Foundation that we will not make grant awards to any organizations that have been designated as hate organizations. And finally, particularly this will apply for our nonprofit applicants, but you must be in good standing with all of your existing awards and contracts with us at the Community Foundation. So that means you've submitted all your follow-up and final reports, basically. So yeah, I know this is a lot of information, so feel free to reach out if you have any questions. But Alex, you can go ahead and flip the slide for me. Since I have all of you, I wanted to share some potential additional relevant opportunities. These will specifically be for 501c3 organizations, but just so you know, we have an active application open for our passion grants. Between now and May 6th, that's the first deadline to submit part 1 of this application. But as you can see, we have some additional funding that might be relevant to the work you're all doing. The first is the Environmental Fund, which supports general environmental protection, conservation, and education in Lancaster County. So it's not just limited to clean water projects. And we also have the Ressler Fund, which supports projects that are located in Eastern Lancaster County, specifically the Elanco, Pequea Valley, and Conestoga Valley school districts. So if you're doing work in Eastern Lancaster, or some of the projects you're doing certainly would qualify for the Environmental Fund, you're also welcome to apply through the Community Foundation's grant portal at lankfound.org/grants. So I didn't want to confuse anyone too much, but just wanted to plug this so there's a couple weeks left for these opportunities. So with that, I think I'll pass it back to Alex.
Thanks, Rachel, for going over the eligibility and bringing up these additional funding opportunities. Yeah, I'll just reiterate what Rachel said. We're going over overviews here, so it's been great having Rachel to help with the logistics. If you get a project idea and you get to the application process, it's great having her and myself there to get you through that. This is just a really quick overview of the application process. And pointing out that the first step is to contact Clean Water Partners. It says to get an access code to go through the application, but really you can reach out before that with project ideas. We will ask when you request an access code, we'll ask for project basics. It's also a place where we can help um, strengthen your application and make sure that you've hit kind of the basics that we need. You're going to be asked for. We'll also say, please reference our website, Community Foundation websites, our info sheets. It has the application questions, eligibility, and some of the evaluation criteria. So it's going to ask about like how is this working towards water, improved water quality? What need does this fill? How does this prioritize collaboration? And what's its target audience? Sustained benefits, those kinds of things. So, but again, just reaching out to me would be the first step for the access code and the project ideas. At that point, you're welcome to apply. We'll also point out the deadline for this is July 1st. Applicants are strongly encouraged to submit by June 3rd. If you submit by that date, a few of our staff members and an advisor can review your application and give you feedback within 2 weeks. We'll get it to you back to you by June 17th with feedback so that you could make any necessary refinements or changes and reapply by the end date. All right, I'm going to end with, before we get to questions, just some more examples to kind of just give you more ideas. Again, our website has over 6 years of projects on it for the Small Clean Water Fund. So this is just a few of them. So these are primarily community outreach examples. The Yohe Project is the Conestoga Susquehannock tribe, and they're making a documentary on their connection to the Conestoga River. It's the first one there. Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake has supported their One Watershed Partnership through signage. They've done it in a number of different ways through the Small Clean Water Fund, working with faith-based parcels and communities. But it's paid for signage. It's funded all kinds of community outreach and projects that they've led. It's also a way to connect urban communities to waterways. So the city of Lancaster has done murals and a lot of different art installations connected to water. The Conservancy, the Lancaster Conservancy, is giving homeowners and residents the tools to really amplify the kind of projects we do by doing it on their property with native plants and small stormwater control measures. And then this last one here, I just want to touch on because it's one of those unique places that the Clean Water Fund can fill, the Upper Cocalco Creek floodplain, like a larger project that they're looking to implement in the future. And that funded designs so that they could work with the landowners who own streamside property to kind of get them to the next step for design and implementation. And just expanding on that, these are also examples of where the Clean Water Fund can fill a gap or a need to kind of get those projects moving forward. Kenoi Township has done a similar project with a streamside parcel that they've redeveloped into a stream access space and trail connection. Also, and the Conestoga River Club has also advanced their water trail work and stream access through this grant. It's also paired. There are also examples of where we paired funding from other conservation landscaping programs. A couple of other examples of small projects. I will also point out that one of the other reasons to reach out with project ideas is because if you're eligible to, if it's within the grant requirements criteria, eligibility, you're welcome to apply. But it's a competitive grant process with limited funding, and we might have other grant programs or partners that might be a fit for it. So if you have these kinds of projects, reach out. I use the example of we have funding that provides trees, like larger urban trees. You can reach out directly to me for that. That's just one example of the way we can kind of support projects, even if it isn't ultimately a small clean water fund project. And finally, this is kind of looking ahead is if you want to apply, just what would be expected if you were awarded a grant. First, you'd be given a yes or no. The deadline is July 1st, and by August 30th of this year, we would have a yes or no to you. And then the grant period is 1 year. Funding starts September 1st. It's September to September 26 to 27. All dollars need to be spent in that period. The funding is upfront, so once you sign a grantee agreement, um, that funding will be released. We do ask that you complete your project and stay in touch. We're here to help, celebrate those, connect those, really make them a bigger impact project. And if we can help do that, we will. Anything that has implementation will require a walkthrough, a final walkthrough. And of course, they all do require a final report. And that does include a financial report, and that's expected just a month after the year of completion for that grant. So that's again, these are overviews. I'll just reiterate, this is a chance for you to ask questions. I'll see if any showed up in the chat, but I'll also turn it over to you all. We can pause here and answer any questions, or move on to the next presenter.
All right, well, I will start the Susquehanna Riverlands Conservation Landscape section. Again, you can put any questions in the chat about the Small Clean Water Fund, or, at the next question section, you can certainly ask questions about any of these grant programs, and we will answer them. I will sort of apologize in advance. My poor neighbor seems to be having trouble getting his lawnmower started, so if my sound goes in and out, it's because there's a lawnmower right outside my window. But my name is Jen T-Sun Pitts. I'm with the Lancaster Conservancy. Really excited to be here in this joint info session to tell you more about the Susquehanna Riverlands Conservation Landscape Grant. The Lancaster Conservancy, if you're not familiar with us, we are a nonprofit land trust. We have helped preserve over 11,000 acres in Lancaster and York County. And we also serve as what's called the external lead of the Susquehanna Riverlands Conservation Landscape. We call that endearingly the SRCL because it's quite a mouthful to say the whole thing. The SRCL is a collaboration of communities and organizations that work together to protect land, steward natural and cultural resources, connect people with nature, and promote sustainable economic development. We are one of 8 conservation landscapes designated by the Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, where partners work together to protect natural assets and improve quality of life. In general, conservation landscapes have distinct ecological, recreational, and economic elements. The SRCL has the distinction of being the smallest conservation landscape, but we think that that really means that we have a great sense of place and we all really can tell when we're in the SRCL. We were designated in 2010 and we are the 7th conservation landscape. The SRCL is also a location, and that's important when it comes to talking about mini grant eligibility. As you can see in this map, the SRCL is encompassed by both of the municipalities that touch the river on both sides, Lancaster and York County. So we do extend our program into York County. This is the technical extent of the conservation landscape, but in terms of eligibility, if you can make a case for your project that connects to, say, the Enola Low-Grade Trail, or the Conestoga Trail, or the Mason-Dixon Trail, or one of the major stream corridors, it's worth having a conversation with us, even if you are outside of the designated Susquehanna Riverlands Conservation Landscape boundary. SRCL mini grants are small grants that range from $2,500 to $25,000 this year. We have a total of $50,000 to award. The project should advance the mission of the SRCL and focus on these following 4 areas. So in general, it's habitat and trail connectivity, sustainable access to the river and surrounding natural lands, community partnership and collaboration, or ecosystem health. It's even better if your project gets points for multiple of these categories. You'll get definitely a higher score in that way. But as you can tell, these are fairly broad and ambiguous categories. So we leave a lot of room for creativity. And as Alex mentioned, it's worth reaching out even if you're not sure if your project meets one of these 4 areas. I think it's also worth noting that mini grants are financed by a grant that the Conservancy receives from DCNR through their C2P2 program. So you do have some state grant guidelines that we need to adhere to. And so that does limit us a little bit in some of the projects that we can do. We try and keep the technical aspects of grant management really simple, much more simple than you would if you got a grant from DCNR. But we do occasionally have to check in with DCNR to make sure that the project is fully eligible for their criteria. Again, as I mentioned, oh, I didn't mention this one yet. We have a new strategic plan. So the mini grants won't change very significantly as far as the projects that are eligible, but it is really important that you read our new strategic plan that was completed last year. It's based on 3 different strategic initiatives. It's much shorter of a strategic plan than we have in the past. So if you have tried to read through our strategic plan and waded through the detailed information, it's now just a couple pages. So the new initiatives that we have are to deepen collaboration and stakeholder engagement, advance land stewardship access and regional impact, and build regional identity and public visibility. So you can definitely learn more and dig into those topics in the strategic plan, which is linked on our website. Eligible mini grants, like the Clean Water Fund, would be 501c3 nonprofits registered with the Bureau of Charities, municipalities and local governments, and then we have some educational entities that are eligible. So for example, we have given Franklin and Marshall College a mini grant in the past. So definitely reach out, even if you're not quite sure if you're eligible. Oftentimes we can pair you with a partner who is eligible and we can get your project done that way. Projects must benefit residents of and visitors to the SRCL without discrimination. We really want to see publicly accessible projects and projects that the public can interact with. So that's really important. Also new this year, the mini grants used to have a 50% match requirement, and DCNR has dropped that to a 20% match requirement. So that'll be really helpful as you put your budgets together, and your match can either be cash, in kind, or a combination of both. So we really hope that that will expand the pool of applicants that we can fund projects for. Full eligibility details are on our website. It's kind of a long link there, so I'll try and drop it in the chat after this. And then I'll just bring this map back up to talk about geographic eligibility. Again, you can apply if your project is in Lancaster or York County within the Susquehanna Riverlands boundary that you see here. So any of the municipalities that touch the river, or if you can make a strong case that your project has a connection to the Susquehanna Riverlands. So examples would be your project is along the Mason-Dixon Trail, Enola Low-Grade Trail, Conestoga Trail, or enhances a waterway or other public property. That's a key resource to connect you to the CO. Our application process, we've been partnering with the Clean Water Fund for the last few years to make sure that it's really easy to apply for both projects since the eligibility criteria are so similar. So as Alex described, you can email me with a brief description of your project. You can see my contact information there on the right. We don't use the Community Foundations portal. Our applications are through a Google form. So you email me, you get a link to the application. If you submit your application by June 1, I will review it and see if there's any improvements that you can make to make a stronger application before the full applications are due July 1. So that's the same timeline as the Clean Water Fund, and our applications are almost identical with just a few changes based on things that our grants need and the Clean Water Fund doesn't, or vice versa. So we've even had applicants that asked the week before the grant was due, hey, I applied to the Clean Water Fund. I just realized that your grant is due at the same time. Do you think I'll be able to submit it in time? And absolutely, yes, the questions are almost identical. So we've been really happy to see participation in that. So applications are due July 1. You'll be notified of the award by the end of August. Usually it's much earlier than that, but that is the latest. Our funding period is 18 months. So once the grant agreement is signed, you'll have 18 months to do your project. There is a little bit of wiggle room for extensions if you need it, but it's only a few extra months. So we try and make sure that that's very clear when we start the project that it's not going to be able to be extended multiple times. If you're awarded a grant, you will sign a grant agreement and begin your project. I'll ask you for periodic progress reports throughout the grant period just to make sure that you're on track. You don't need any changes to your grant, and the grant period is still looking good. These are really simple. I just ask you to email me a few bullet points. It's not a formal report at all. So that's really easy. You can submit payment requests whenever you'd like. Usually grantees submit 2 payment requests throughout the life of the project. We will hold the final 10% until your project is closed out. To close out your project, there's a simple final report, and then you have to submit all of your invoices and a final financial sheet to receive your final payment. Some examples of funded projects through the conservation landscape. The Stackstown Road Community Park project that Alex talked about, that was funded with both the Clean Water Fund and the Conservation Landscape mini grant. So that was a really exciting project that we're excited to open up in a few weeks. We funded other improvement projects like the Enola Low Grade Rail Trail parking expansion. We've also funded planning projects like the Outdoor Recreation Plan, strategic plan that EDC Lancaster led. Horn Farm Center in York County is building a comfort station for their new headquarters. And so we funded 2 phases of that. And again, the Conestoga River Water Trail Assessment Plan, we funded that as well. A few other examples, KTA put together a weekend-long event a couple years ago that we funded with a mini grant. Same thing, Franklin and Marshall College put together an event called the Bird Summit. That was a great success last year. We funded education at YWCA York Camp. Again, we also fund signage like the Clean Water Fund did, and some other trail planning updates. So definitely this is just a smattering of examples. So if you have anything that sounds in the flavor of these, please reach out. We'd be happy to discuss whether your project is eligible. Any questions on the Susquehanna Riverlands Conservation Landscape Mini Grant, or going back to Alex's Clean Water Fund presentation? All right, if there's no immediate questions, again, you can always feel free to drop it in the chat or save them for the next question time. I will go into some examples of joint projects between the Clean Water Fund and the mini grants. So these are examples of how the programs may be paired. Again, the application is almost identical. So in this example, we have a trailhead access improvement project and rain garden project in one. So the nonprofit is going to propose to expand their existing parking lot at a popular trail along the river in Lancaster County by adding 15 spaces to a 20-car lot, including ADA spaces. They're also going to put a rain garden in with some interpretive signage, and they've already have their preliminary design, engineering, and permitting plans. They estimate that the project will be $40,000, and they're going to apply to the SRCL mini grant program for half of that, and the Clean Water Fund for $17,000 with an in-kind match of $3,000. And I will note that this is overmatched as far as the mini grants requirements, and I don't believe the Clean Water Fund has any match requirements. So now our matches are much, much lower. But again, you can use staff time or cash. This is how the budget looks. So we're going to ask you to divide out the budget into the various categories, and we might even ask for some more detail after that. But they have a professional services line, materials, landscaping, and then they list their staff time, importantly, with their hourly rate and the number of hours that they estimate. And then you can see the $20,000 for the mini grant, the $17,000 for the Clean Water Fund, and the $3,000 match to get us to our $40,000 budget. A second example would be expanded educational programming to showcase local watersheds. This is an education foundation who wants to expand their education programming to help students better understand human watershed pollution. They are also going to have some experiential learning activities, including planting a riparian buffer and putting in some native landscaping. The teachers have been working with coaches to align with PA science standards so that the lesson plans can adhere to educational standards. They estimate the project will cost $25,000, and they know that they're going to serve 5 classrooms over a 1-year period. They're going to apply 50-50 for the mini grants and the Clean Water Fund, and they're also going to provide the in-kind match. Again, with the new match requirements, this is overmatched, and that does score a little bit higher, but it's not a requirement for the mini grant program. So again, here's the budget, how the budget would look for this type of project. So you got your professional services line items listed separately, the transportation cost, that's an eligible cost for this. You can also use it to purchase materials, and then direct staff time. And so you can see how the different grants and the in-kind match would be split out amongst these 3 different programs. So again, we'll open it up to any questions before we pass it over to Estelle to talk about the Schuylkill Highlands mini grant program.
I just wanted to throw in there, thanks, Jen. Since you just went through those examples, there is no max requirement for the Small Clean Water Fund, so that is important. It is something that is considered, of course, though, when we're scoring and evaluating applications.
All right, I will turn it over to Estelle then to talk about her program.
Thank you, Jen and Alex and Rachel, for partnering with me on organizing this small grant info session. I want to say that first. I'm glad to be introduced to Lancaster County partners, and I'm happy to share information about the Schuylkill Highlands. My name is Estelle Wynn Dolan, and I am the program manager for the Schuylkill Highlands Conservation Landscape. Let's see. There we go. Thank you. As Jen mentioned, the Conservation Landscape Program was initiated by the Pennsylvania Department of Conservation and Natural Resources, DCNR, and it includes 8 distinct geographic locations. These locations are focused on the natural, historical, and cultural resources within those geographies. Schuylkill Highlands distinction is this one here, is the orange one, is that we are the most densely populated of the conservation landscapes. It is defined by that area where the Schuylkill River watershed intersects with the federally designated Highlands region. Regarding the Highlands, just quickly, in 2004, Congress passed the Highlands Conservation Act. Oh, I went one too far. To recognize the importance of the natural resources in the Highlands region to the United States. So the Mid-Atlantic Highlands includes 4 states, which is Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. In 2022, when the Highlands Conservation Act was reauthorized by Congress, the boundary was expanded. So the original boundary was that black line, and in 2022, it was expanded to the purple line. This is a blow up here. You can see in Pennsylvania, there are 13 counties that are included in the Highlands, including parts of Lancaster County, which is what brings our Lancaster County partners into the Schuylkill Highlands Partnership, despite being outside of the Schuylkill River watershed. But that was a little tangent. To get back to the Schuylkill Highlands, as Jen mentioned, each conservation landscape has an internal lead at DCNR and an external lead at a hosted at a partnering organization. Jen is with Lancaster Conservancy, Susquehanna Riverlands, and I am an employee of Natural Lands. They are the host organization for the Schuylkill Highlands. Not every county in Pennsylvania is within a conservation landscape, and even those counties that are, not all municipalities are. So here you can see where the Susquehanna Riverlands is on the western side of Lancaster County, and the Schuylkill Highlands touches the eastern side. This is the Schuylkill Highlands boundary in its entirety. Some fast facts. The Schuylkill Highlands Conservation Landscape features the Hopewell Bigwoods, which is the largest unbroken forest between Washington, D.C. and New York City at almost 30,000 acres. It's centered around Hopewell Furnace National Historic Site, French Creek State Park, other state game lands and state forests, and Natural Lands' Crow's Nest Preserve. The backbone of the Schuylkill Highlands Conservation Landscape is the Schuylkill River and the Schuylkill River Trail. So here you see the geography, which includes all or part of 6 counties. That's all of Berks and portions of Bucks, Montgomery, Chester, and Lebanon counties, and of course, Lancaster County. You can see here. There are 7 municipalities in Lancaster County that are part of the Schuylkill Highlands. That would be Clay Township, West Cocalico Township, East Cocalico Township, the boroughs of Denver and Adamstown, and Brecknock and Carnarvon Townships. There are 5 goals that guide the Schuylkill Highlands Partnership. They include connecting residents and visitors to the outdoors. That's our primary goal, especially with the Schuylkill River Trail. To encourage nature-based tourism and sustainable economies, to conserve land and water, natural resources, to promote the Schuylkill Highlands region, and to leverage funding, which is what we're here to talk about today, primarily through the mini grant program. So the Schuylkill Highlands mini grant, I'm going to try this animation here, is an annual competitive grant program. There's a lot of information, so I was trying to not have you be faced with it all at once here. But it typically opens and closes in the spring. It is open right now and will be closing in May. We provide awards to partner municipalities, counties, and nonprofit organizations of up to $15,000. There are usually 8 to 14 awards per year, depending on the funding requests that come in, for a total of approximately $100,000 annually. All awards require non-DCNR match, equivalent to 25% of the amount being requested. And while match cannot come from DCNR, it can come from other state agencies, such as the Department for Community and Economic Development. Up to 50% of the match can be in kind. And while the Schuylkill Highlands mini grant timeline does not co-align with the Clean Water Fund, that, of course, is an eligible match, but the Susquehanna Riverlands would not be because that is also a DCNR-funded program. Total project budgets are not to exceed $50,000, and the project timeline is not to exceed 12 to 15 months. Finally, fee and easement acquisition projects are ineligible for funding. However, specific due diligence costs may qualify for funding. So, applicant eligibility. Any local, county, or regional government agency within the boundaries of the Schuylkill Highlands Conservation Landscape is eligible to apply, which includes from Lancaster County those 7 municipalities I mentioned. And I just want to give a shout out to the borough of Denver and Mike Heston, their borough manager, because they are multi-year Schuylkill Highlands mini grant awardee. They're doing great work out there. Also eligible are incorporated nonprofit organizations registered with the Pennsylvania Bureau of Corporations and Charitable Organizations. Whether or not those organizations are headquartered within the Schuylkill Highlands, the organizations of that caliber are eligible, which brings me to the project eligibility. Awarded projects must be located within the boundaries of the Schuylkill Highlands Conservation Landscape. So while a nonprofit organization may be outside of the boundaries of the landscape, as long as the project is within those boundaries, then they are eligible to apply for funding. For site-based projects, public access is required. Specific plans and studies are also considered eligible projects for mini grant funding, such as open space plans or park management plans, or trail feasibility studies, engineering studies, that sort of thing. And as I mentioned, fee simple and easement purchases are ineligible, but specific due diligence costs may qualify as decided by the program manager when applicants initially discuss their project with me as the program manager. Here are some examples of projects that have been awarded funding in the past. Top left, I'm going to go clockwise here, from the borough of Denver. That is environmental education signs in their Bonneview Linear Park. Great Marsh Institute received funding for environmental education in the marshlands. Eastern Pennsylvania Alliance of Climbers did trail improvements. They built those nice stone steps out by Ralph Stover State Park in Bucks County. Bucks County Park and Recreation Department did invasive species control, and at the bottom we see Perkiomen Watershed Conservancy installed a native pollinator garden. These are some more examples of awarded projects. I also want to direct you to the Schuylkill Highlands website, where there's an archive of all awarded projects back to 2014. In total, to date, the Schuylkill Highlands mini grant program has awarded over $1.7 million since the inception of the Conservation Landscape Program to partner projects. The application process begins when potential applicants review the mini grant program terms, which can be found on the Schuylkill Highlands website. Applicants then need to contact me through phone or email to discuss the project proposal. And once given the green light to move forward, go to the grant portal website and create a login. We have a brand new grant portal starting this year. We've built the application on the Foundant software platform on the cloud. This new platform also allows applicants to collaborate on the application. And then finally, applicants need to make sure they submit that application by the grant deadline, which is 4 p.m. on Thursday, May 14th. For the grant timeline, once the application period ends, a review committee will begin evaluating and scoring all applications. The committee will then meet in person to discuss the applications, and make final decisions. This year, June 30th is the date by when all applicants will be notified as to the status of their application, whether or not they were funded, the project was funded. 90% of the funding will be dispersed up front, and the final 10% at project closeout. And as I mentioned, all projects must be completed within 12 to 15 months, as these are meant to be smaller, short-term projects with quick turnarounds, as opposed to larger projects that one might apply to DCNR for. The obligations of the awardees whose projects are selected for funding will be to a sub-agreement, which will have the exact funding amount and the project closeout date clearly laid out for everyone. Halfway through the grant term, a brief progress report must be submitted to make sure the progress is on track, and this can just be bullet points. There is a template for that. There's also a template for the final report, which needs to be submitted at the conclusion of the project, and it is very similar to the progress report submitted halfway through the project. The project success story is completed, also using a provided template, and project photos are required for site-based projects. And for document projects like those plans, title pages or other documentation is required. The summary of project costs is submitted, and there's also a template for that. It's based in Excel, and proof of expenditures, which includes invoices, receipts, and canceled checks. Finally, there's a closeout and final payment request form, and this triggers the disbursement of the final 10% of funding. So thank you for learning more about the Schuylkill Highlands Conservation Landscape and Mini Grant Program. This QR code will take you to the Mini Grant webpage to find more information about what I shared with you. And you can check out the regular Schuylkill Highlands website there as well. And I invite anyone here who's doing project work within the Schuylkill Highlands Conservation Landscape to engage with our partnership and sign up for the newsletter so you learn about the events and opportunities that come up within Schuylkill Highlands. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, Estelle. Jen and Rachel. Estelle, it's a great addition to this grant info session. Thanks for being here. And yeah, like Estelle said, we'd love to connect more of the municipalities within the Highlands to these kinds of grant opportunities. So here you see, again, these are the contact information for the coordinators you just heard from. Thank you all for being here. This is, again, just to reiterate, this was just an overview. Hopefully I know some of you, this might be all new to you. Some of you, maybe you've applied to these programs in the past. So it's really just to give you a sense of what these programs could do, certainly how you could use them together. And we'll end with this as far as the next step is really please reach out to us with any projects ideas or what might be a fit for these grant opportunities. And we're happy to walk you through each of our grant programs. And Jen or Estelle or Rachel, anything you'd like to add? Other than that, I think we'll end.
No, I think at the end of the day, if you have a project that you even think might fit one of these programs, please reach out to us. And as Alex mentioned, if your program's not a good fit for our program, we might be able to pair you with somebody else who can help you fund your project.
Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate that as well. But definitely keeping my feelers out for different funding opportunities, and I include them in my newsletter every month. So anything to share the news about that.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. Hope to hear from you soon. Have a good day.
Thank you for the great information. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.